Hello, and welcome to the N.E.R.D. Never Ending Ridiculous Discussions TV and Film Podcast. I am your host again this week, Kayla Smith, and I am joined by my co host, Dominic Spaziri. How are you doing on this lovely afternoon?
Oh, it's great, and I cannot wait to talk about Suicide Squad.
Oh, I know you're excited. You've got thoughts. I've got thoughts. It's really all we've got on the slate this week. I know we mentioned last week that we might talk about Jungle Cruise, but it's a $30 access fee on Disney Plus. It was going to cost us money to go see it in theaters, and as much as I love The Rock and I love Emily Blunt, it just didn't happen for me. Didn't happen for Dominic. So really, all we've got right now, is Suicide Squad, which has it started with a resounding 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for a while, which was insane.
Yeah, especially for a DC like a DCEU movie. And
Hmm.
I know when I was finished watching the movie, and then I had to think about it because I didn't really realize like what movies count as DCEU. I know the Dark Knight trilogy doesn't. I don't know if the Joker does. I'm going to assume no. But with that running assumption, if Joker does not count as a DCEU movie, this is, in my opinion, this is the best DC movie. Period. I think they finally made one that is really, in my opinion, really good. I don't know if you want me to get into it yet, but I had a lot of
No,
fun.
I really want to hear some of your thoughts on it. All of my friends really enjoyed it. Let's see. I just pulled up Rotten Tomatoes. It still
Hmm.
has a fresh tomato score of 92% and an audience score of 85%. And my understanding was DC basically handed the reins over to Jim Gunn and said, or his name's not Jim Gunn, is it? It's
Just double
oh
check, but
god.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, James Gunn.
Yeah.
James Gunn. Jim James. It's the same. You do what you can. um hey Jimmy boy. No, so they basically handed the reins over to James Gunn and they said, do what you want. Do whatever you want. And my God, could you tell that he just took it and he ran? My thoughts are that it is not my favorite DCEU movie. I am a
Oh.
huge fan of Aquaman, which I know that you would rather we did not get into. I loved Aquaman and I loved Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
I loved them both, and I think they're both better than this movie.
That is a
Um,
shot in the heart.
I for you, yeah, I know. I know, but it's I just the thing is I liked a lot of what they were trying to do. I just don't think they did any one thing greatly. Like I just think again, like with the last Suicide Squad, they were trying to do so much that it was too much. And one of my biggest qualms first moments into the movie was you see kind of Team B who's not in there for a while.
Hmm.
But you have like Weasel drop into the ocean and he's drowning for like what felt like forever. And it's not until he's dead that somebody goes to rescue him. And that just like blew my mind storytelling wise. Like, how do you just watch this thing? I was about to say man, it's not a man at all.
Well,
Terrifying. But you watch him drown, you watch him struggle, and nobody tries to swim to him, not even like Rick Flag,
well,
who
they
actually is working for the government and wants to see these people live to finish the mission. Like that just it seems really backwards. Um, and on top of that, then immediately after they get onto the shore, and spoiler warning, guys, sorry, but it, you have this like massive explosion and affinity for gore, which works. I don't mind the gore. It's just
Mhm.
I don't think that the gore was done well. I can tell that James Gunn was trying to do it in an artistic way. Maybe like it was supposed to be comic book, but you see this guy's head get cut off on the diagonal and it just slides off and I was like this just looks bad. Like it completely took me out of the moment. I have a lot more issues with it, but let's just start there and I'll let you go, Dominic.
Oh well, I think you're definitely looking at it at the wrong way. I think you have to. This movie, first and foremost, is a comedy. and I think we do have to look at it that way. Because like even with Weasel as a character, like it was obviously just a joke. Like the entire character is treated that way. You know, with him being brought into a mission and he can't swim, and like so when he jumps in there and he starts, you know, swimming or drowning for his life, and everyone's sitting there, you know, like he can't swim. To me, that was hilarious. Like this is just a funny joke. And the character doesn't die, by the way. Not to spoil warning all the way to the ending, but in the mid-credit scene, he does get up and walk away. So the character's alive. Um, but like, you know, I also don't want to discount the helicopter scene of them going in there and the conversation about is he a dog or not, and you know they've never seen every breed of dog. So that's like one thing that like I think if this was a serious movie like the original Suicide Squad, that just for quick reference, in my opinion, one of the worst movies I have ever seen. And it's nothing to do with the cast. I mean, it has Will Smith and he was decent in it, but he was like the only good part. But uh, I think the fact that that movie took itself so seriously in just the worst way, and then this one is just the entire movie. And obviously, as we get more into it, it's a joke. It's a giant joke. All of it's just a B movie. It's basically a comedy. Um, and I think with that in mind, like just with that whole just James Gunn mentality of it always having this like kind of B movie filming style and just willing to take anything that's supposed to be serious and then make a joke out of it is just something that you kind of have to like go in there and look at. And I think you'll appreciate the movie a lot more. It's just, I mean even with the scene with Harley Quinn, who I know I feel like you've said this before too in a side conversation. Harley Quinn and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is one of my least favorite characters in media. I don't like her. I always found her nauseating personally. I know Margot Robbie is a fantastic actress. I've seen her in countless movies that she's very good, but I just don't like Harley Quinn. But this was the first movie, and right off the bat, nothing bothered me about her. Like I thought she was actually pretty good, and actually decent, and I didn't think there was anything about her that really annoyed me. And especially like in this movie, when she's laying down with the guy with the staff, and he dies, and it's supposed to be like a serious moment, and then she immediately starts slapping him. Like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? That's just a representation of this entire movie. And after the opening scene, I just sat back and went, I'm in. Like, I am in for the rest of this movie. You just killed off half the cast, and I can't wait. And that's what it was for me for the entire movie, personally.
After after Black Widow, you kind of mentioned to me, he's like, they killed so many people, like it killed so many people, and that's
Hmm.
all I was thinking about at the beginning of this movie. I was like, my God, they just murdered
Well,
like an insane. But I'm
they're
like,
they're not
that's what bothers
superheroes
me.
though. They're not Avengers. Like Black Widow is an Avenger. That's
Oh my
unacceptable.
God, first of all, she's not acting like an Avenger at all in that movie. She's
Yeah,
just trying to
she's
be an
killing
Avenger,
people.
doing what she wants. That's not what we're talking about today, though, sir. We're talking about Suicide Squad. And yes, these guys murder, and they don't care who they murder.
Hmm.
They're trying to get him off of their sentence and call it a day. So, yes. And I did find the drowning. It's not that I found the drowning sequence not funny. It's just it it was so lengthened out that I was like, really, nobody's gonna try to swim to help him. No, but like if we're gonna talk about plot holes, I mean, yes, it's a comedy, yes, it's funny, but like a lot of the emotional beats didn't land well for me. Like I love Idris Elba, who
Hmm.
played Bloodsport, and I actually did love the relationship that they were able to craft between him and Ratcatcher.
Hmm.
Sebastian Stan was hilarious. The Sebastian Stan, the little rat, was great. Um but I had this issue with the first Suicide Squad too, where they're trying to create these emotional beats between the team where they start to, grow together and they learn more about each other. And you find out that, oh, villains really come from this place of someplace else. Like they're real people with real lives. Um, and I just wasn't bought in. I didn't feel bought into those moments. So then at the end, yes, did I find it hilarious when
Hmm.
Bloodsport looks at Polka Dot Man and goes, "It's your mother!
Yeah.
It's your mother!" Like, it was funny, but you know, you then, spoiler warning, he gets smashed by this starfish alien thing, and I think you're supposed to feel something, and it was just funny, I guess. And I was kind of, I don't know. Um, there was a lot that was really good about it. It was really funny, but at the end, me and Paul, my boyfriend, looked at each other and he's like, "I can't believe that was a movie." Like, I can't
Really?
believe what I couldn't even just put together what I had just watched. Now, that's not to say that that's not good. We laughed a lot. I just I don't know. It didn't sit quite right with me. And it made me really upset because I was really excited to see it. Like, I would not rank the first Suicide Squad movie as like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Obviously, they got a really great cast for it. Will Smith did actually a pretty good job.
Hmm.
And I had a lot of fun in the first one. I had a lot of fun in this one. Um, but maybe I think what I'm looking for, you mentioned the fact that, the first Suicide Squad took itself so seriously, and this one just kind of went, well, that didn't work. So we're going to swing way the other direction. And I think I kind of want something more in the middle area because too serious was too much, and so was not serious enough. Um, that being said, you do get Idris Elba, who is great. I would love to go back to Harley Quinn and just talk about her for like 2 seconds, please. Um, I do find her generally nauseating. I had a lot of issues with the story that they gave her in the original Suicide Squad, and I think that the best thing that they ever did for her character was taking her away from the Joker, because I had so many problems with the relationship that they were trying to show and be like, well, no, this manipulation and this abuse and this stuff is bad, but she still loves him. And I don't really I don't really love that as a message, even for villains or people who are really screwed up. Because you're going to have little kids, or eventually smaller children, watching this stuff. And she works so much better by herself. I loved most of the stuff that she did in this movie, despite the fact that you could pull her out of the movie and nothing would change. Not a thing. I loved the little bit where she's with the guy who's running the country. But I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we taking time away from this to do this? This makes no sense. Like, are we just supposed to see that she's kind of crazy? But then Margot Robbie's hilarious. She's hilarious. I didn't realize that like Milton wasn't supposed to be with them, and then Polka Dot Man's going, well, Milton got killed, and Bloodsport's going, wait, Milton was with us, and then Harley Quinn comes in and she just goes, wait, who's Milton? There was a Milton? When was there a Milton here?
To cut you off there, don't talk bad about that joke because I was dying of laughter when
Oh, I
that
love
entire
that.
scene was
That
happening.
was great.
Yeah. But
No, that was great, and I loved every second of that. Especially at the end when she looks at Bloodsport and she goes, "See you later, Milton," and he's like, "I'm not Milton." And she goes, "We just had a whole conversation about Milton." Margot Robbie is great, and there were really, really great moments in this. It just felt like all disjointed moments of greatness, if that makes sense.
I guess it does. I definitely disagree with you on a lot of the negativity that you may feel towards this movie. Um, I thought the tone of it was, in my opinion, perfect. I loved
Mhm.
that every time they try to do a serious moment, it just ended up being a joke. It's also, I think that's just James Gunn's style. I mean, every movie I've seen of James Gunn, this is how it is. You know, the music, the approach to seriousness and comedy is just this is just what he does, and I just think the outcome of it was just perfect. And this is I think this movie overall, again, not his perfect masterpiece by no means. You know, obviously I think his take on the first Guardians of the Galaxy I think is superior than this and probably every single way. Uh, but I definitely think this was done really well. I think um, if there's a couple gripes that I would personally have about it, the scene where they actually my both my gripes have to do with Harley Quinn actually. Um, I would have done the scene with where they're saving Harley. If you remember when they're getting her when she's being tortured and everything, I would have actually done that scene backwards. So I didn't like that they show her escape, then they show them arriving to get her. Personally, I think they should have showed them arriving to get her, have her walk around the corner, and then be like, "Wait, what?" and then flashback to her getting out. I think that would have been cooler, personally, because again, her character in this movie, I think is my personal favorite of all of them. I think they was actually interesting. But also, my second problem with Harley is that you could remove her entirely and her entire subplot and every character that she's associated with, and it would do absolutely
Right.
nothing different for this movie. Um, I don't think there's really anything she does. Maybe when she fights the giant starfish at the end, that something in there is actually important, but she definitely seems shoehorned in there because Harley Quinn is, despite my preference to not really like her, she's a very, very popular character. People seem to love her. And maybe it's just loving Margot Robbie, which again, how can you not? She's a very good actress. Um, that's pretty much about it. And then other than that, though, I just think if this is the direction that some DC movies will go, not all of them. Like, I don't want to see a Batman movie like this by no means. I think you throw comedy into Batman, I think you ruin him as a character. But if this is how a lot of these movies are going to go, especially like Suicide Squad, basically just taking this Marvel route, but going the extra mile and using the F word and doing jokes that Disney's going to go away from it. I think these movies are going to find a nice home, personally, as like a more adult oriented film series because obviously we have like plenty of TV shows. We have The Boys, we have like Invincible, we have like the adult, more violent superhero kind of TV shows, but like we really don't have a movie series like that. And I think if Suicide Squad is the Suicide Squad, I think is a good example of where these movies could go. So personally, I'm totally okay with getting more of this. I know we're getting more of this. There's going to be a Peacemaker sequel series to this that is going to be directed, at least partially, by James Gunn. Don't stick your tongue out at this. I see you over there. You audio listeners, she's making a face. um, but yeah, I'm definitely really excited about this. I was really happy about it. Actually, I think if there's one other little disappointment, which I don't know if they had the ability to do it, is I wish at the ending, I think it would have been really funny if instead of them fighting the starfish, Superman shows up and just defeated the starfish. And then like the actual ending just does something else, Like then they go face Amanda Waller, um, like in the offices or something like that. I think that would have been actually been kind of crazy because that is the one plot hole I'll say is that they live in a world where that doesn't make sense. Um,
I have so much to say about the last 30 seconds of content that you just plopped onto
Go
me.
on.
First of all, I hate Peacemaker. I love John Cena. Let me make this clear. Viewers, listeners, I love John Cena. He did a great job as Peacemaker. I hated his character. And not in the way where like you go, well, you're supposed to hate his character. No, I know that. I'm aware. I found him so irritating. The way that you have these feelings about Harley Quinn being irritating, I
Mhm.
found him irritating. And John Cena actually is really funny.
Yeah.
He's really, really funny. But I have absolutely no desire or no need for a peacemaker. Like, I was so happy when Bloodsport or killed him, which, you know.
Not dead.
And then I have issues with that too, because the whole point is that Bloodsport is supposed to be better than Peacemaker. Like he's supposed to be better and like he's trying to prove the whole time that he's a better mercenary than he is. And then he doesn't kill like really? Really? Okay. Second of all, I love thought that we could have had Henry Cavill just plop in, slice him in half with laser eyes and call it a day. I would have been okay with that. And also I'm really glad that you brought up Amanda Waller because I want to talk about her in this movie so much. She is one of my She is my character that I really enjoyed loving to hate.
Mhm.
She's obviously incredibly problematic, and maybe this was you that I was talking about this with, or maybe it was one of my friends. But in the comics, she'll just go off in the comics and she'll just murder them. Get pissed and push the button and they're dead. So I actually really enjoyed this aspect that these mindless office workers that you see a lot in like the superhero movies or like in the in the crime movies in the police station or whatever the agent's offices that don't ever really get lines or say much or have opinions and thoughts, that throughout this they're kind of going, I think she might be going off the deep end. I think she might be going off the deep end. And in that moment when she was on the phone with all of them and they're walking back to go and save the city and she's screaming into the phone, I was like, oh my God, this is so brilliant. And I'm like, but I'm going to be really, in my head, it was because it went so fast.
Mhm.
In my head, I was going, but she can't back down. I will be so mad if her character backs down and steps away from the button. And the best thing that I think that they could have done in that moment was whack her over the head. I didn't see it coming. I had no idea what they were going to do. I just know I was going to be mad if she decided to step off. And I loved it. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. I love that she got bashed over the head and that we're finally getting some sort of commentary on these problematic practices that she is choosing to take part in.
Yeah. I would say her as a character, this is obviously their second or third time playing this actor or this character. I'm not 100% sure. I know she did. I know there's this cast had basically the entire returning staff of the first
Mhm.
Suicide Squad, and then obviously a couple Birds of Prey. But I will say she is the second most powerful woman in the DCEU. 100%. Like just her presence on screen. I mean, if only she
Ugh.
was as powerful as the one woman who stopped a fight between a god and a billionaire, the wonderful Martha, the most powerful woman in the in the DCEU. You know, maybe
All
then.
right. All right, Dominic. I will indulge you. I am so sorry that we're doing this, viewers and listeners. Dominic,
Hmm.
tell us why Martha Kent, who, for those of you who are confused, the mother of Superman,
Mhm.
why? Why, oh, why, Dominic, is Martha Kent the strongest person in the
Oh,
DCEU?
oh, I just said it. She stopped a fight, a war between a god and a billionaire. All right, no one else did that. Martha did. Just the presence of her name. She is the most powerful character in the DCEU. I will make that argument. You know, everyone's saying it's Superman, it's Wonder Woman. No, it's Martha. All right, nothing stopped them, but she did. The mention of her name alone is.
You are your mind. I I don't even know.
I'm just saying it's hard to accept truth. I'm right.
Says the madman. Says the madman who doesn't like Wonder Woman.
I'm sorry,
And
it's
we're not getting into that. I'm not ready to have that conversation.
not good. You don't deserve that conversation because again, I'm right. That
I don't
movie's not
deserve
good.
the conversation. You're wrong. First, you're wrong. You're still wrong. Um, I truly do not know how you I don't know how you argue that Batman versus Superman
Mhm,
is better
mhm,
than Wonder Woman.
mhm.
You're wrong. You're just wrong.
Way more fun. Way
I
more fun.
refuse. Wrong.
It even has the better
Wrong.
Wonder Woman.
I really would like you in post credits to make sure that you just get just a giant red block capitalized wrong and just plaster it over your face when I say wrong. Wrong. You are wrong. We will have this conversation at some point, but that's not on the schedule, people.
It'll be red letters, but it's going to be a different word that's also 5 letters.
Oh, screw you, sir. um, I can't agree with you though that the Suicide Squad is better than Batman versus Superman.
Yes.
I will agree with you on that.
Yes,
Can
this
we? Can we?
we
Okay.
we can definitely agree on that. It's better
Also,
than the majority of DCEU movies. And I'm sure someone out there is going to argue. I People really like Wonder Woman. Again, I'm not one of them. People really like Wonder Woman. But I think this is personally easily the number one. Um, in my opinion, I think it's the most fun, well-rounded one, and I really did like the characters. I know you weren't crazy about all of them, but I really did like a lot of them.
It's not that I didn't like the characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's that I just didn't like what they did with them.
The killing them all off in the beginning, which is essentially Deadpool 2.
You know what? Actually, we watched this with my friend, and she kept saying, she's like, so this is Deadpool. This is DCEU Deadpool. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you're not wrong. Um,
Yeah, it's Deadpool, but directed by James Gunn. And
right.
actually, I don't
And
know
that being
who
said,
directed Deadpool.
it's just there were moments where we were watching and my friends going, well, they told James Gunn to do whatever he want, and my God, he did whatever he want. I will say my favorite moment of gore, and I'm not usually a gore fan,
Mhm.
is when they just rip Hanaway, just rips that guy in half.
Oh
That
yeah.
was great.
Also,
That
him
was
as a
great.
character, I loved him. So, and this is why I'm surprised when you were saying like you didn't really feel a lot for the characters. I fell hard for like damn shark.
Love,
You
I
know,
loved
when
Hanaway.
that scene where he gets attacked by like the little jellyfish guys, and he falls out, and for a second you're like, you didn't just
Is he
kill.
dead?
Yeah, like, you didn't
You
just
can't
kill
kill
him.
Hanaway.
That was true fear that I had. Also, I do want to give a shout out to this scene before we, potentially start moving on to something else. I don't know how much longer we're going to talk about Suicide Squad, but
Oh.
the scene where Peacemaker has his gun to the rat control lady, and then Idris Elba's character just comes toppling down from that tower and just face to face. Hype, just max levels of hype. Like, all right, let's go.
Will say I truly believe that I need to rewatch this movie now that I've experienced. I think okay, I will not end this episode or end this segment saying that I loved Suicide Squad.
mhm,
That's not gonna happen, guys. I will say the more that we talk about it, the more I realize there was a lot of stuff that I really liked about it. Um, and that I have a feeling that this is one of those pieces of art that you can't just watch once. Like it's one of those movies where you watch
mhm,
it and maybe you don't pick up on everything the first time. And I feel like I almost need to rewatch it, which I might actually do since it's on HBO Max for those of you
mhm.
who have that. Um, I might do that this week just to kind of like rewatch it and see if now that I've had time to think about it and just kind of have it all thrown at my face, which was a lot. This movie is a lot, people. It's a lot.
Yeah.
um if rewatching it kind of changes my opinion on it because I think it will. I think it's one of those movies that is going to age like a fine wine.
Oh yeah, I think this is the most rewatchable DCEU movie. I mean, if you
Oh yeah.
ask me right now, name one or two DCEU movies that I have to rewatch, I would easily say Suicide Squad, and then I'd have to actually sit down and go, what else do I have to sit through? And to be frank, I might just say Batman vs Superman because it's me here. But potentially Man of Steel. Actually, I would probably say Man of Steel. I actually did like that movie.
Also, I'm very disappointed in you, Dominic. Not
Well,
that I want to talk about the DCEU, but I'm very disappointed that I haven't heard you mention anything about the kaiju moment
oh yeah, the
in the
starfish,
movie.
the big starfish. I did like that. They bring out, we have a freaking kaiju in here. So yeah, once again, Warner Brothers and HBO providing me giant monsters. They're putting Godzilla vs Kong back in HBO Max. Can't wait just to watch it. A movie that I already own, but
And
whatever.
and it was a saga to get that to you, if I'm remembering correctly. There were a lot of tears, guys,
There's
about his copy of
a lot of
Godzilla versus Kong.
anger and me talking with Best Buy a lot. All right, I had to go through not one, not two, but three different orders so I can get my movie. It's so complicated. You should just buy digital. All right, just buy digital. It shows up, but I like my physical copies, especially of like Godzilla movies. Again, I have to mention Godzilla every single movie podcast we do in some way, shape, or form. So thank you for My
That's why I
Godzilla
was
of the week.
surprised that wasn't that's why I was surprised that you hadn't brought up kaiju that when he because the minute that the guy said kaiju, I was like, "Oh my god, Dominic's gonna flip out."
I know.
I'm like, he's gonna watch this and he's gonna flip out the minute that he says kaiju. Also for me, what was really interesting is I do community theater and I was supposed to be in a production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which unfortunately
Mhm.
got shut down due to somebody left. And they played this song called Just a Gigolo Everywhere I Go at some point, and it was just very amusing, if not a little bit heartbreaking because I'm not doing the show anymore, because that song started playing and two of the characters in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf sing that song at one point.
Never gonna escape
So
you.
that no, I'm never gonna escape it. I'm doing Sweeney Todd now, and my ensemble characters dressmaker, and I named her shop Honeysuckle and Blackthorn Dress Parlor because my character's name was Honey. So
And if you want to talk about a dramatic story, why don't we talk about you and that show not working out before we talk about my DVD approach?
film and TV, for those of you who have not seen it, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is an American classic play written by Edward Albee, and it was adapted for the screen in I don't remember the year, but Elizabeth Taylor is in it, and she is iconic as Martha. And then you've got her husband George, and then the married couple that's coming over for the day or for the night. It's like
Hmm.
2 in the morning by the time they get there. Nick and Honey, and I was to play Honey, who is 26. I'm 26, and I think she's supposed to be blonde, but we do what we can. Um, so our George had been coming out and he was straight from directing a show. He was having a really hard time with lines. There was some interpersonal stuff happening. I don't want to get too much into it, but our Martha decided to leave us. Um Not because of anything important, and that's what really kind of made me angry was that it wasn't just oh, I'm sick, I broke my leg, or there's something really important happening in my family and I can't devote, the next 2 weeks to this show anymore. This was her choosing um her personal moral high grounds over us and making sure that this show that, our director and our co-director Jan and or Bernie and Jan had been trying to get the show up for 20 years. This wasn't just, oh, hey, COVID happened. We're putting it off for 18 months and now we're putting it up. They've been trying to get this show up at Stagecoach Players for 20 years. And she destroyed it in 2 days. So,
Oh yeah, I know. I remember. I've heard the story multiple times.
yeah, it's rough. But I'm doing Sweeney Todd now, so I rewatched that. Guys, by the way, Sweeney Todd holds up. Holds the heck up. Love Johnny Depp.
Hmm.
Um, could do without Amber Heard for obvious reasons some days. Um, which breaks my heart about Aquaman and Aquaman 2 because I love Jason Momoa. But Sweeney Todd holds up. I will be in the ensemble for that at Stagecoach Players. We are holding auditions for the ensemble. For those of you who live in the Illinois area from August, I believe it's 13th, 14th, 15th. Um, so if you sing or if you just want to do a show, come on out, check us out. It's going to be a good time. Lots of blood, gore, and murder. And you can actually watch Sweeney Todd on Amazon Prime as either the Johnny Depp version or the 1967 version with George Hearn and Angela Lansbury, who is an icon.
So I didn't know that there was a '60s version. I've only known my time, and you know what? Let's just talk about Sweeney Todd for a couple minutes. I only know of the Sweeney Todd version with Johnny Depp. It's beyond the play, but that movie, the version with Johnny Depp, is infamous for me. As one of the definitely few times I fell for a marketing ploy, um, and a lot of people fell for this because that movie is known for pretty much two things: A, being a pretty dang good movie, and B is for being a movie that everyone thought. oh, this is just gonna be a murder horror movie, like in the style of Tim Burton. And then I'm sitting in the theater, like ready to see Johnny Depp, cut some hair and slit some throats. Oh, he's singing now. Oh, they're all singing. This is an hour and they're still going. And then you realize right then and there that the trailers, I don't know if you remember the trailers for this movie, they did not sell that this was a musical. They marketed this movie as not a musical. And it got me. It's one of those movies that I was not expecting to be like this, the way it is. But that being said, it's also very good. So I can, to keep it to keep us talking about film and TV and stuff like that. For those who obviously aren't in the area in which we live, and maybe you're not into musical theater for some reason, or you're not unable to make that performance, or any performance for that matter. The Johnny Depp movie is actually very good, in my opinion. If you
Oh yeah.
like Johnny Depp, or you're just like horror, or you're into musicals, it's definitely worth checking out. I'm not crazy about musicals, but it's one of the few that I'll talk positively on. I haven't watched that movie in over 10 years, but I do remember liking it.
Yeah, it's the Tim Burton, I mean really either version, the staged version or the Johnny Depp version is a wild ride from start to finish,
Hmm.
and a lot of that is thanks to Stephen Sondheim and his brilliant use of music theory and everything that he does. And this is not a music podcast, so I really don't want to get into this too much, but he's just one of those brilliant minds that everything that he does has a purpose.
Hmm.
So he's not just writing these songs and these lyrics to fill a spot in the show. It's chatty because that's how people talk. I'm singing soprano for the show, and there is a point where we're singing the word Sweeney Todd or Sweeney, and the top, once you put the entire chord together, it's supposed to sound like an oven whistle. And it does. So it sounds like literally the oven whistle that Mrs. Lovett uses to bake the pies in. Um, and Tim Burton just lends his hand so well to that. It's a really well crafted movie. And actually, if I'm going to complain about gore, I technically should be complaining about the gore in Sweeney Todd, although I guess I forgive it because it came out earlier. But that's one of those ones where like the blood's really, really overly red and runny in a way that it would absolutely not be
Well,
in real life. But
it's an artistic choice. It's definitely
yeah.
sometimes the gore color is just there for the fun of it. And I probably in Sweeney Todd. Again, I don't remember this movie. It was so long ago. But that's probably what it is. And I definitely think there are movies that do the obnoxious color, and not just gore,
Mhm.
but like obnoxious color in general, fairly well. And then there are some movies that don't benefit from it. Like I would argue, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, not gore. It's not gore at all. I don't think there's any blood even in that movie. There's a lot of fighting, but like that movie's super colorful all over the place, and I think it benefits very well from all that kind of stuff. Whereas some movies, you know, don't.
Well, you look at Sweeney Todd and you think, and you get another. So you Stephen Sondheim, who's brilliant with music and lyrics. You have a book writer who I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, who's also very smart. And then you get Tim Burton's hands on it, and Tim Burton is a master of directing. These kind of creepy movies like this. So it almost works well that you have a very grayscaled film, and then really the only bright spots of color that you're getting are either in the blood or in that like one scene of happiness,
Yeah.
which happens in all of his movies where you get brighter washes over the film, and it's just really smart. And the other place you actually see that done is Schindler's List. That's all in black and white except for the sole pops of red, and I almost have to wonder if that had something. He saw Schindler's List, saw that bright pop of red. Now he's doing Sweeney Todd, and really you're only seeing these bright pops of color when there's bad things happening. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, I know that's what I personally rewatched this week. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I don't have a timer to start for you. I have never seen Shawshank Redemption. which is a movie that I've been intending to see, but I have not ever seen. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to sell me on Shawshank.
I can't give you two
Go.
minutes. You're gonna need me to give me like a half hour
Oh
to
my
talk
God.
about
You
this
get
movie. I love
five. You get
Shawshank.
five.
I love Shawshank Redemption. I actually just showed my girlfriend it this weekend for the first time. So Shawshank Redemption is based on a Stephen King short story that they basically made into a full-on 2.5 hour movie. So it's a long one. It was released in 1996, 1994, one of those 2 years, basically that early mid 90s era. And it stars Morgan Freeman as one of the main characters, and then I fortunately don't remember the actor who does Andy Dufresne, who is kind of the other main character that you kind of follow throughout the movie. So this is a movie that follows Andy Dufresne gets sent to jail for supposedly murdering his wife, who is having an affair, and he murdered also her lover. So he gets sent to jail, and the movie is then basically follows him and Morgan Freeman's character, who's named Red, who narrates the entire movie in their time in jail, which basically spans about 20 years throughout their time in jail together. So this movie is definitely very male heavy as a cast. I think there's actually only really one female actress in the entire movie, and that is his wife that's shown in the first couple minutes. Other than that, like it's in an all male jail, and it takes place in the 19. I think it begins in 1947, and then it goes from there. Um, but it is a wonderful movie that it obviously shows the hardships of prison, especially at the time, and what all these people have to deal with. But it also deals with Andy Dufresne's character, who still has hope, despite the fact that and this is an older movie, so I don't want to spoil too much because I know you haven't seen it. I'm trying to sell you on it, but like his main character is him saying like, he's been saying the entire time like I'm innocent. I don't remember killing these people because he was drunk when the murders happened. And he says like
Oh.
he says I don't remember killing these people. I'm innocent. Um, and he always has this hope that good things can happen. He can build something from nothing. And Red's character, Morgan Freeman, is very much like when you are in jail, you need to throw out hope, and what you have is what you have. And they kind of go through this theme throughout all the characters that they deal with, especially ones that have been in jail for over 50 years and then
Hmm.
get on parole. Um, or they make their parole and then they get released. So it's a movie that deals with all this kind of stuff and deals with the perspective of life, what you should do when you make mistakes and how you learn from them, and just kind of building something even when you have everything taken away from you. And
Oh.
it's a movie that deals with a lot of things. And overall, it's a movie about friendship, which is huge. And the ending it's a long movie that has a lot to it. If you like reading, if you like books that are like just full, like a lot of things happen, it all builds up at the end. This is what this movie basically is. It's not one that you can watch once. Like this is a movie that you have to watch 2, 3 times because once you see the ending and it all comes together, you start to see all the themes and the character developments and how every single line is important and every
Oh
moment and
my God.
scene is important. Um, so, in the last 30 minutes of the movie alone is when it really picks up, and that's when it starts wrapping everything over. And once it does that, like I even looked at my girlfriend, who was definitely for the first 2 hours, kind of had this face of like, all right, what's going on here? Like it's moment after moment after moment. But right when the ending portion starts, like even her
Mhm.
face was, whoa, what? Like she like her eyes opened up and she started getting into it. And it's exactly what happened when I first watched it. There's a scene that happens and goosebumps all over your body. And then
Oh.
when it finally ends, it's just a movie that you're like, okay, I need to rewatch this again to see everything that led up to this because there's hints, there's lines to it, there's every line of dialogue is important. It's a phenomenal movie. In my opinion, like obviously, I love like a lot of movies. I'll go on and on about certain series. If I was to say if there is one piece of American cinema that I think is the standard, and this is the perfect movie, I would say Shawshank Redemption. To me, it is number one. The only flaw it has is it really doesn't have any female representation in it, but that's just because it takes place in a male jail. But I can't really fault it for that because that's the setting. But other than that, I think it's a phenomenal movie, and rewatching it again this weekend, it ages even better. Besides the title screen, nothing about this movie screams 1990s, in my opinion. I think you could release this movie today, and it would still get just the stellar reputation that it has. I think anyone I know who's seen it all say the same thing about it, like I do, that this is a phenomenal movie, and it's worth watching the entire experience.
Yeah. I still had it pulled up on I still had Rotten Tomatoes pulled up, so I just really quick when you mentioned that I wanted to check and see what its rating was.
Mhm.
It still has a 91% tomato meter and a 98% audience score, which is really impressive considering it was released in 1994 and it has not gone down at all because we've discussed on non-podcast time that not all movies age well, which is something we do want to talk about at some point.
Oh yeah.
Um but I think we're about to run out we're starting to run out of time a little bit. So I just wanted to take a second to ask you kind of like what you've been watching.
Well, besides rewatching Shawshank, I also my girlfriend and I a couple weekends ago we're on Comedy Central, and two movies played back to back, and we watched them both. And that is these are early mid 2000s comedies, Knocked Up and Hot Tub Time Machine. And if there is a genre of movie that you would say these are probably like movies that don't hold up very well and probably aren't worth watching, I would definitely say probably the early mid 2000s comedy movies. Like there's a lot of them that really don't hold up really well. And I think we can go on and on about what movies just the humor just doesn't work. And I'd be surprised to say that watching Knocked Up, um, I think it holds up actually pretty well, at least theme wise. I think like the characters that are in it are 100% relatable. You know people who are like that are still around today, like this kind of stoner, lazy. They'd rather play video games and watch porn all day. Like that's what these characters are. Like you still know like these characters exist today. My biggest problem with the movie is that a lot of its humor is very like kind of anti, like I don't want to say anti-gay, but it's just very much like that's what it was at the time. It's hey, you're gay, yada yada. I remember that time. I went to high school. That's how people talked. But it definitely pushed on it a little too far, or at least a little too hard. So like the movie didn't, in my opinion, didn't age as well. And then also the cast is pretty much all white people. So again, by today's
Yeah.
standards, it's not gonna age as well. But to move on to Hot Tub Time Machine, com- that movie also has a little bit of the "hey, you're gay" kind of humor thing to it, uh, but it's a little bit more excusable because the characters are going back in time and dealing with high school age kids. So okay, and also it takes place in the 80s. So okay, I'm a little bit acceptable. And what's also really nice though is that it doesn't push so hard on it. That's not the butt
Mhm.
of every joke. Where it Knocked Up, it felt like there was a lot of jokes that were kind of pushing that to the point where, like, I know if I was to rewatch it, I might be over exaggerating, but it just felt like it was almost every other joke. Whereas Hot Tub Time Machine was a movie that I had a lot of fun with. I was still laughing at it. I think it's still relatable today for the most part. And like some of the jokes and some of the music, particularly when they do this like Black Eyed Peas moment, I don't know if a millennial or like a Gen X person is gonna recognize the Black Eyed Peas song, the "Let's Get It Started." They might not know it. They might hear it and be like, "That's cheesy." It's a really cheesy song. But like that song's in the movie, and they put a big moment. Yeah, see, I know you're
Old?
holding your heart.
Are we that old? I'm
Yes,
not that old. I'm only
yes.
26.
One of my friend's little brothers saw us listening to it because I like my rock and metal, right? And I'm with one of my best friends, and we're listening to Coheed and Cambria and like My Chemical Romance, like that era of like that emo rock progressive kind of music. And it's so some of my favorite bands, what I grew up on. And his little brother, who's not that younger than us, literally went, "Why do you listen to this? This is like old music." Just
Oh my
completely
god.
insulted us. And this isn't like that Black Eyed Peas song is even older. All right, like it's like 5 years older than the songs we were listening to.
When
So
did that song come out? Let's get it started. I'm looking this up right now.
I was in middle
Um,
school. I'm thinking 2004 is when that movie came out. I think that song came out the same time as American Idiot.
let's see. It was released by the Black Eyed Peas in 2003. We're old.
Yeah,
We are old now.
we
I
are
remember
old.
when 80s music was old. They probably think that's freaking ancient now, and I love 80s music.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
what have you been watching? What stuff have you been watching?
So speaking of comedies, which aged fine, we watched Blades of Glory. It kind of has a little bit of that like that gay undertone going on, but I think they flip it really nicely because they do
Uh,
allow the character who is more feminine or femme presenting to take the point of the male position at the end of the movie. So I highly recommend that if you're just looking for good fun. I really love Blades of Glory, and I was really happy that I still loved it.
mhm.
And I still laughed a lot. That's, Will Ferrell. I can't ever remember the blonde's name. And then uh Amy Poehler and her husband at the time, they're now divorced. So I mean, that's a great movie. Um, and then I checked out a 3-episode limited series called The Pursuit of Love, which is on Amazon Prime. That is in between World War One and World War Two in Britain, and two women who are best friends growing up. And one of them follows the normal path for a woman, and then the other one is deciding to go look for love. She wants to go live a full life and not just live in her small sheltered home. And it was okay, but there were a lot of points that I really liked about it as far as, feminine storytelling and telling stories of women. um Finally, I also started watching The White Lotus. That's on HBO Max. I'm speeding up a little bit so
I heard
we
about
can
that.
wrap this up. I love White Lotus. You have to watch it, Dominic. This is my 2-minute interlude to talk about this. The show is great. It's a mystery, it's a comedy, it's a dark comedy about these like five this group of people who go to a Hawaiian resort, and they're all dysfunctional for different reasons. There's a lot of really interesting and poignant conversations happening, but also there's a lot of comedy happening. You've got this family who their dad thinks that he might have cancer, and the mom is a very powerful CEO, and the sister wants the brother to sleep in the kitchen because she's uncomfortable with it, and so he ends up going and sleeping on the beach. It's funny, and somebody gets murdered. I still don't know who. That's getting released weekly. And I finally checked out Ted Lasso on Apple TV. It's another show I really want you to watch, Dominic. It is so funny, wholesome. Jason Sudeikis is incredible, and I can't recommend that show highly enough. Everybody should go watch it. It's about an American football coach, like with the football, like the Bears, Packers,
Yeah,
and he gets hired
with
to
the
go
football.
coach. He gets hired to go coach football in Britain, but not football, Bear Packer, like football, soccer.
Yeah, I've
So,
heard nothing but positive things about that.
oh, it's so good. It's just started season 2. They're releasing that weekly, and I'm almost caught up on that, and I'll be very sad when I am. That being said, I'm guessing we're at about the 54-minute mark now. I have had a great time chatting with you today, Dominic.
Of course.
If you enjoyed chatting with us, please like, share, subscribe, comment, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere else I'm missing, Dominic?
No, we are also, there are actually links on this little video tab, so you can subscribe to us on Apple and Spotify, and you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. It's in this little corner over down there, where we have the names on there. And then, of course, you can like and subscribe here, leave a comment, tell us what you've been watching, what you want us to check out, and what your opinions on Suicide Squad are, of course.
And next week, we're not totally sure what we're going to be watching yet. Free Guy and Don't Breathe are both being released on August 13th.
Mhm,
That'll be Disney Plus for Free Guy. That'll be another $30 premium access, which is kind of why we're on the fence about that. And then
mhm.
Don't Breathe will just only be in theaters. Again, both of these movies we're kind of expecting to be B, C tier probably. Not that the first ones weren't enjoyable, but
Mhm.
We just might not make it there. If not, we're gonna have a fun time talking about something. Maybe Keanu Reeves. Maybe
Oh, don't
Marvel.
give me Keanu Reeves.
Maybe DC. I don't know. We love Keanu Reeves. Um, um, but for this week, I have been your host, Kayla Smith, with my co-host, Dominic Spaziri. This has been the N.E.R.D, Never Ending Ridiculous Discussions podcast. Dominic, go ahead, point to all of our links again. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and as always, nerd out.